Hi guys, and welcome to Escape with Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today I'm going to be comparing the top AliExpress Submariner homages for you guys. And I know the sub has kind of been played out, and a lot of us have kind of moved on from this design, but there's a lot of folks that still love these watches, and there's still plenty of people that are just getting into this hobby that will immediately gravitate towards this style of watch. So they are still selling really well, and I figure this is a good time to do a video like this. So before we get into this, I received these two watches, the Millefortic and the Watchdives, for free. I don't have to send them back. And then I paid full retail price for both of these watches for this review. So yeah, a huge thank you goes out to each and every one of you guys who has watched a video or used one of my links to purchase something. It all goes back into the channel, and so the only reason we are here today is because of you guys. So huge thank you goes out to each and every one of you. If you are interested in picking up one of these watches at the end of the review, all relevant links will be down in the video description. Those are affiliate links. So please help me recoup the funds that I spent on making this video for you all. Okay, so let's get into it. First, on the table, we have the latest versions of the Millefortic, the Sugas, the Chronos, and the Watchdives. And I'm glad I went with the latest and greatest because Sugas and Chronos, from the previous versions that I had, these ones have been upgraded and updated. So yeah, these are the very latest ones that you can get. I do know Chronos just offered a new Miyota 9000 version. The only difference on that is that they shrunk the case back a little bit, and that's the only thing that's different. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So how I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be grading these watches on 10 different categories. We have the case finishing and the case itself. We have value, crystal, bezel action, bezel insert, dial, lume, and bracelet. So I'm going to be grading them on a benchmark type of scale. So one of these watches will always get a 10 out of 10. The others will be based off of that. And I'll tally the scores up at the end, give you an overall score at the end of the video so you can see which watch I think is the best one. Keep in mind, some stuff is just personal opinion. I try to keep that out of my reviews as much as possible. And I know different people have different wrists and different preferences than you guys do. So let me first say all of these watches are very nice. In my opinion, you'll be happy with any of them. I would say look at each individual score, base your decision off of that, as you know, one watch may be better or worse in a category that you find important. So obviously they are all very similar in design and size. The top-down dimensions are the same within, like a 1/10 or 2/10 of a millimeter. So there's no real difference in the diameter, lug-to-lug, lug width, bracelet taper, anything like that. So this brings us to our first point, and that is for the thickness or lack of thickness. The only place that they differ in the case sizes is the thickness, and the clear winner here is the Watchdives. It is 11.8 millimeters thick on my calipers. You can see here, really nice. Got a low case back there. I'd say the mid case and the bezel are pretty much the same on all of them. So just because the worst one here, the loser, is the Chronos at 13.3 millimeters thick, it's all in that case back. So visually, on wrist, it pretty much appears the same. I am knocking off points because this is the one that I can actually feel that extra thickness. I can feel it sitting up off of the wrist. These three here, they're all pretty similar. The Millefortic is 12.2, I believe, and the Sugas is like 12.7. But in my opinion, they all kind of wear the same. So the scores for this one, 9.5 points for the Millefortic and the Sugas, 9 points for the Chronos, and 10 points for the Watchdives. And talking about the case finishing on the watches, as far as the brushing and the polishing goes, I couldn't see anything that really differentiated them. They all look the same. The case proportions are all about the same. They all look very good. So where I made my numbers from was the softness of the case. The Submariner style cases, they are pretty well known for their harsh edges and their pointed and their sharp corners. So I'm talking about this edge down here. It's always usually very sharp on these watches, and then the points on the lug tips here, the inner and outer points. Same with this bottom edge down here. It's always sharp on these style of watches. So that's where I was going after. And after rubbing these watches down like I'm trying to get 3 wishes from a genie, I came into the conclusion pretty easily that the Watchdives comes out on top here. It was pretty clear that this was the more refined case when it comes to the sharp edges and corners. It just feels a little bit softer. The Millefortic was the clear loser here. It was immediately apparent that it was in last place after handling all of them. It took a while to kind of differentiate these ones here. But yeah, I gave 10 to the Watchdives here, 7 to the Millefortic, and a 9 to the Chronos and the Sugas. All right, so let's get to the bezel. This one was actually pretty easy to me. They all have different feels, and none of them have back play or bounce or wobble or anything like that. Some have worse grip than others, but they're all still really good bezels. The winner here, in my opinion, is pretty clear winner, is the Suggest. It kind of has that slippery, slick feeling bezel, really nice clicks as well. I mean, it's the perfect resistance. The alignment is perfect. It's just a really good feeling bezel. The watch dives comes in second with good grip, good resistance, and a nice loud, solid ratcheting type of bezel. It's a very tool-like bezel. You can feel each and every one of those clicks. It's just a different feel than the Suggest, and it just doesn't feel as refined as the Suggest does. So that's the reason why it came in second. Third was the Millefortic. It kind of goes back to the Suggest feeling. It's that kind of slippery feeling. It's just a little bit too easy to turn, in my opinion. Other than that, it is very, very nice, and I just love playing with these two bezels. And last is the Chronos feeling. Pretty similar to the watch dives, but lacking grip. It's a little bit slippery and having a cheap and kind of quiet sounding bezel. It's still, again, not a bad bezel at all. It's just, I would say, the least pleasant bezel to manipulate out of the three, or out of the four. So yeah, going to the scorecard here, we have a 10 for the Suggest. I'm giving a tie to the watch dives and the Millefortic. A little bit different feeling, but still very good bezels. And then an 8 for the Chronos. So how about the bezel inserts? This is another really close one. They're all made of ceramic. They're all engraved to high standard. I'm giving 10 out of 10 to the Suggest and the Millefortic for their use of silver paint and the inlays. It's just a more premium looking. It's how Rolex does it. Same with the Lume pips. This is how Rolex does it. So I'm giving them 10 out of 10, and I'm giving 9 out of 10 to the other guys. They're just using plain white paint filling, and then the Lume pip is just done a little bit differently. It's not a bad way to do it. It's just done differently, a little bit different than Rolex does it. So that's why I took off a point. All right, so let's get to the crystals. This is another close one. It's difficult to judge slightly because the green dial on the Millefortic here, but I put these in all sorts of different lighting conditions. The watch dives does edge out the rest of them. They all have anti-reflective coating, clear anti-reflective coating. It was a tight one, but the Chronos did show a little bit more glare and reflections than the other ones did. So yeah, that's why I'm giving the scores 10 for the watch dives, 9 for the Millefortic and the Suggest, and an 8 for the Chronos. Getting to the dials on these watches, again, they're all super, super close. You can see there's different proportions, but I'm taking that out of the equation. I don't want to tell you which one I like the most. It's going to be different for everybody. So I'm talking about just the quality of the dial itself. The inky blacks on these ones, obviously I can't take into consideration that on this version, but I'm looking at the indices and the hands, and I really could not see any difference. I broke out my macro lens, and that's the only time I saw any difference in these, and that is the Suggest. The Suggest showed like tiny micro scratches on the indices in the hands, invisible to the naked eye, but it's the only place I could see a difference. So all the watches got a 10 here, except for the Suggest got a 9.5. And related to the dial, how about the Rehaut depth? It's an impossible one to test and to physically measure. So I'm just going by the visuals here. And the watch dives does have the thinnest Rehaut, but it's not like a walk away win. The Suggest, I think, came in. I gave the Suggest the same score, but that's because it does have a engraved Rehaut. But here you can see them side by side. It's close. It is very close still. So yeah, that's just something I noticed on the watches there. The Rehaut on the watch dives is the thinnest. All the rest are pretty much the same. So I gave a 10 to the watch dives. I gave a 9 to all the rest of the watches, but then I gave this one an extra point. So this one gets a 10 just because of the engraved Rehaut. And now we come to the Lume battle. Here you can see a time lapse of the watches over about 45 minutes. I locked my exposure, I locked my focus. So what you're seeing is a pretty true to life result. I charged these with a UV torch all at the same time. I can still read all the watches in the middle of the night, but the clear winner here is the Suggest, which actually surprised me. I wasn't impressed when I reviewed it a couple years ago. So it seems that they have upgraded the Lume on these guys, and it's impressive. The Chronos is pretty strong too, but the hands do fade a little faster than the dial. The watch dives performed well, just edging out the Millefortic. So as far as scores go, the Suggest was a pretty clear winner with a 10 out of 10. The Chronos was an 8.5 out of 10. We gave the Watch Dives an 8 and the Millefortic a 7. So obviously the bracelets are a pretty important part, and I had to break this down into 3 parts and then average those out to give an overall score. So the end link fitment, as far as like gapping goes and stuff like that, and tightness, they're all about the same. But as far as the fitment goes, the Chronos and the Millefortic reign supreme here. And I'm talking about mostly just this transition here from the bracelet end link to the actual case there. You can see just how nice and even that is. There's no real stepping or anything like that. Same with the Millefortic. And then when we get to the other watches, you can kind of see little tiny steps here. I can catch it with my fingernail, and that's just where they're losing out on a little bit of points there. So as far as end link fitment goes, I gave a 10 to the Chronos and the Millefortic. I gave a 9 to the other two. The bracelet itself, the top dog goes to the Suggest for the use of half links. Let's see here, half links. I actually have half links on this, so that's pretty cool. And then just the overall slightly tighter tolerances. It feels like a little bit more of a solid bracelet. The bottom edge seems to be the best finished as far as the sharpness goes. The Watch Dives lost big here, and that's because of the use of split pins. So it does have split pins for sizing instead of screws like all the other ones. And then slightly, just slightly looser tolerances and maybe just a slightly lighter feeling bracelet. It's still a good bracelet. It's just the use of the split pins really brought it down, in my opinion. So overall scores for this, we got a 10 for the Suggest. We've got a 9 for the Chronos, 8 for the Millefortic, and a 7.5 for the Watch Dives. And then the clasps. The tie goes to the Suggest and the Chronos for the use of on-the-fly clasp. I actually think I prefer the Chronos clasp. It is very nice. It's kind of that San Martin style on-the-fly clasp, so you can tighten it down without pressing a button. The Suggest uses the more Rolex style clasp, so this flip lock, it is signed nicely as well. And it does have on the fly. It just has the kind where you got to take off the bracelet to do it. So, and it's just not quite as smooth as the other one is. So, that's really my only complaint with that one. But yeah, these two are the winners here. So the Watch Dives uses a nice milled clasp, one of the nicer milled clasps I've found. No sharp edges on it, but just simple micro adjust there. And then the far and away loser here is the Millefortic. Its clasp, it's fine, but it's just really small. It doesn't function the best, and it does have a little bit of sharp edges here and there. So that's where the Millefortic loses. So the final score for this one is 10 for the Chronos and the Suggest. We've got an 8 for the Watch Dives and a 7 for the Millefortic. So averaging those up, and then again rating out of 10, 10 out of 10 for the Chronos and the Suggest, 9 for the Millefortic, and an 8 for the Watch Dives. And lastly, we have to talk about value, taking all of the other stuff out of the equation, everything that we just covered, and just looking at price per specification. I ranked them 10 out of 10 for the Suggest due to the features and its cheapest price for the NH35. I gave Watch Dives a 10 out of 10 because it is cheapest by far in the PT5000 or ST2130. Chronos gets a 9 out of 10 because you can get it with 3 different movements. You can get it with a date or a no date. You can get it in a ton of other colors that the other ones just don't offer. So while you're paying a little bit more for this one, you're also getting options that you just can't get with the other watches, and there's some value in that. And then last up was the Millefortic. It's $30 more than the Suggest, but it just has less features. So after totaling up all my scores, your winner is the Suggest. And it pretty easily wins this battle. I kind of saw this playing out as each watch rolled onto my desk. This was the clear standout winner in my opinion. It takes or shares the top spot in 6 out of the 10 categories, with 9 being its lowest score. So it is just very solid throughout. And then honestly, a surprise to me is the Watch Dives. Kind of a surprise, I guess. I mean, I always know Watch Dives is bringing out some nice watches, but this one is lacking some features and stuff like that. But it also takes or shares the top spot in 6 categories, but loses big on the Lume and the bracelet. But as far as the value and the case finishing and the thinness, that's where it comes out on top. Next up is the Chronos. So taking only 2 categories, but being solid pretty much everywhere across the board. Everyone suggests the Chronos watch. I can see why. They are great watches, and this is no exception. It doesn't do anything spectacularly well, other than kind of give you the options that the other ones just don't give you. So yeah, and I do think the bracelet is very nice on this watch. And in last place, which I don't really think many of us really expected, it's the Millefortic. It's only taking this top spot in 2 categories, but it falters on value, lume, and the sharp case finishing, as well as the bracelet. So yeah, that one takes my last spot for me. So there you go, guys. As of 2025, I will say Sugues is still the king of the sub homages. Let me know your thoughts below. If you appreciate what I did here, why don't you just leave a like and subscribe down below. And again, all the links will be below for you to purchase whichever watch you think is the right one for you, because honestly, they are all still really good watches. Some of them are just better than other ones in certain areas, and maybe that's important to you guys. So, but yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.